Hi, this video is about the stellar nation's perspective on the star Algol. And the stellar nations is a chronicling of our galactic history as told through the stars. And this information is held in Akashic records on the seventh dimensional star Antares. And two women in Hungary, Dr. Beatrix Ceziel and Aniko Gresko, were asked to apprehend this information and record it in 2005 and 6. They were approached by the master delegates of 13 stellar soul families. And these are soul families that abide in the stars. So this is a tracing of the stars as sentient worlds where learning is happening. And we simultaneously exist in the stars. You could call that our light bodies, and the stars perhaps the cells of our light bodies. And we're then also physically a distillate of our light body here in the third dimension. And we're concurrently learning and evolving. So the stories from the stars are really important. It's actually the energetic patterns we see there are what are behind a lot of what happens to us in our physical reality as people and as societies. So it's very important to know the picture of Algol inside the context of the stellar nations. My name is Leslie, and I'm a guide for the stellar nations cosmology. And for the journey we're about to go on, it's helpful to embrace the understanding that our soul particles live and experience and have a concurrent expression in the stellar worlds, as well as here in our physical bodies and this physical realm. It's also helpful to realize, since we're speaking about a span of experience, ourselves as physical beings and also as more energetic beings, that some of what we speak of are patterns that have a great truth on an energetic level. And if we try to just use our minds and look at the information as literal, oh, did that really happen? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But energetically, there's an imprint that yes, some kind of relational dynamic is active here. There is some truth being expressed. And really, the beauty of the galactic myths is they wake up a certain kind of remembering from ourselves and let these energy patterns rise up. And we can start to make some sense. We can start to see that we actually have a galactic face when we start to know where our soul particles reside. We can recognize that we are living in a creation cycle that moves forward and develops by polarization, by the action of opposites catalyzing each other. And in this creation cycle, in the book of life, it is written that there must be a point where polarization takes place. The two poles move the process of creation and maintain the dynamism of the process that unfolds around us as an operational reality. And from the moment of division, it all strives towards reuniting. And the collective effort is the main motivation of development. So you can see that we are catalyzed by the polarized fields that we lived in. In our creation myth, we speak of the divine creating the world in 7 cosmic days. We learn from the Akashic Chronicles that on the second day, the divine mind gave life to the angels. And on the very same day, meaning in the same cosmic cycle, the first great war in the divine spheres takes place. It's the war of the angels. And from the highest point of view, this might have been a necessary step to affect the polarization. Even though this polarization is divisive and very sad and has extreme consequences, which we know we're living them, it is an idea in the mind of the divine, and there is a purpose. In this great war of the angels, some angels were on the side of the shadow and some on the side of the light. Perhaps those on the side of the shadow truly fell into a lust for power. Perhaps they were so close to the glory of the divine throne that they just wanted to take it over for themselves, to experiencing being rulers over the matrices of creation. Or perhaps they volunteered. But angels in this war on the side of the shadow do not die. When they were slashed, they simply lost consciousness, lost their larger band of awareness, their larger abilities. And with that, they fell. And they fell to the stellar world of Algol, which became the graveyard of the fallen angels. And as the graveyard of the fallen angels, it's a fourth dimensional expression of this world. It's frozen light. We find Algol in the Perseus constellation, and much of our collective myth reflects the nature of Algol in its truth. It's called the demon star. Interestingly, it waxes and wanes in brightness, and that's because another smaller star orbits in front of it at times, so that it dims it and it actually appears to wink. And there's great mythology around Algol, around Perseus being the hero who defeats Medusa, who is a head full of snakes, is completely evil, and her eye, which is Algol, turns anyone who looks at it into stone. Yet he manages to use a shield and behead her so that he can avoid her eye and cause her beheading. So there's the flavor of the background energetic that I'll be telling you from the cosmology does come out in our collective consciousness, but we'll refine that a little bit with more of the story from the Akashic records. Every planetary world and stellar world has a kernel of the Holy Spirit at its core, holding the divine plan for that particular body. The divine plan holds for Algol that it also be a channel of rebirth. Algol is part of a process where the fallen ones are then taken to the Cetus constellation, to Beta Catos, which we'll see in a moment, and through their experiences of learning and accepting redemption in Beta Catos, it represents that it's possible to fall, but then to return to the light through redemption. And that's the ultimate meaning of Algol. Algol is meant to hold the idea of the polarity of dark and light and the possibility of raising above the conflict between the two. There is another fourth dimensional star, Beta Catos, that is the seat of judgment, the galactic seat of judgment. It's a karmic school. It's like a chamber of mirrors. It's a place to recognize the transgressions one has made against the cosmic laws where they've hurt creation. And it's a chance to look at this chamber of mirrors, confess, and then accept redemption and be released and risen. Risen back to a fuller awareness of consciousness, a fuller expression in creation, now with the awareness of how to exist within creation without destroying oneself or others. Because from experience, there's the knowing of how to balance oneself with the creative forces for the good of everything. Now, many fallen souls have utilized this process and have come out wiser. But there's a cadre of fallen aspects that just don't want to do that. There's a feeling that the creator is a power over, is a cult, and they want to create their own matrix. Eventually, the Galactic Council releases these soul particles from Beta and Katos, because the feeling is they can't learn in this constricted space with that kind of reflection, and they need to go out into creation again and continue to act, and by the fire of their actions and experiences eventually gain enough feedback to start to understand that there is another way. So we do have the release and the existence of soul particles that haven't gone through this process of redemption. And we have to realize that all of us have soul particles in many different stellar worlds. And we're a combination of some absolutely Christed soul particles and some stellar worlds we're existing where we're still learning from the shadow. There is a cosmic law that if something is not resolved inside of us, then it will be launched on its way again. And that is so that the feelings and thoughts and motivations inside of us can be measured. So in other words, if there are latent shadow patterns, even though we may have further reincarnations from our light body as physical distillates, and we come to Earth and we try to be good or measure up or do whatever, this latent shadow pattern from our larger cosmic self will arise again to be measured against the circumstances of our lives. In cosmic history, we learn that there was a time on the star Vega when the winged lion as noble ruler was taking their final initiations, and the dragons as guardians of divine law and divine order were charged with guarding the winged lions. And yet, the head dragon at that time was a reincarnation of the fallen dragon Khan, who had been released from Beta and Katos unrepentant. And now, as a reincarnated being known as Sante Aliyah, the latent shadows for power arose inside of him. And there was a hierarchic order among the dragons, and he started to drum that up again. He was surrounded by 3 high-ranking priests and leaders who were further surrounded by 36 warrior priests, and then there were 99 surrounding them, and finally in the last ring, 666 warriors that were guarding and surrounding their leader, Sante Aliyah. And he woke up the idea of a golden age. It was a holy idea. It went out into this ring of beings as a memory and a waking of a holy idea. But it's kind of a hypnotic spell. It's a cherished dream. and remembering that they could bring back a golden age that would lift back the dragon force to its worthy place, so that the worlds could witness that true power was held by the dragons, who had all the control of the elements and could move matter, could destroy and create worlds, because it wasn't understood that the winged lion, who could allow the divine frequency to run through itself, was truly the leader that could entrain others up to the higher octave of the divine mind. So there was a huge movement towards restoring a false idea. This vibratory pattern released by Santa Alia attracted the reincarnated fallen angel, Satanel, the leader of the fallen angels. And they went to the star Algol, and in an act of unico magico, they merged their genetics and created a new hybrid entity. This hybrid nation and bloodline can take up the deceptive beauty of the angels and yet also contain the rage and destructive fire of the fallen dragon beings. They're beings that possess the angelic mysteries, and through those mysteries they can put on the most wonderful, most glorious, most adorable outer appearance as disguises, or they can even make themselves invisible. They can put on many different masks of goodness and kindness by hiding behind the attitude of a savior or a guardian angel, until suddenly the ruthlessness of the dragon warrior, who's fallen and intoxicated by power, also intoxicated with a possessive and destructive selfishness, can then break out of this seemingly good mask. The fallen dragon and angel forces were joined by fallen male serpents and fallen arthropods to make a very strong shadow alliance, and terrible galactic wars ensued. But let us remember that in the galactic myths, Algol also has a six-dimensional expression. It's a channel of rebirth. It is also the eighth virtue of the dragon. The dragon nation goes through initiations on 8 stellar worlds, and its eighth and final initiation is on Algol. And it is about ruthlessness. Now we see when ruthlessness is misused on the lower dimensions, but in the higher divine mind, the idea of ruthlessness really gives the warrior the task to strike the lethal blow, if it's necessary, in the protection of divine truth and order. And it's the matured dragon aspect of us, the warrior who guards divine will, divine law, divine order, who is tasked with the final initiation of knowing when to strike a force that is destructive to divine order out of creation. So it's up to us now to take the sword of light, the sword of truth, out of the stone, out of Medusa's eye, out of the frozen rock, out of frozen light, out of the Holy Grail, and to understand that it is we who are the warriors of rebirth. What we're doing or asked to do is to slay from creation this spell, this belief, this false story. And as I record this now, it is July 14th. And there's a lot of awareness that Algol will be conjunct with Mars and Uranus in a few days on July 17th. So it's very important all the time, but if you're watching this in this time period, it's important to understand that it's our inner Mars, our fiery determination and warrior nature, and our inner Uranus, our ability to break the bonds of a spell. And we are asked to take the higher understanding of Algol and insist on that by understanding that we are not living in truth of the divine mind when we cycle back and forth between light and dark polarization without using those forces to better creation and ourselves to move into the higher dynamic of balancing the polarities. We can realize now, as we're nearing an ascension, which is not only a local or earthly process, but one that concerns the whole solar system. It's an extensive galactic retuning of our reality, which affects great multiple cycles of life. If Algol succeeds in choosing the light related to this reattunement process, which concerns the Earth, the solar system, the Pleiades, Sirius, and more, then we will have a moment of the fulfillment of fate that belongs to the great orbiting cycle of the whole galaxy. And in experiencing the ecstasy of turning into the light, then life may be sustained on Algol, and the Holy Spirit in the center of Algol, holding the true divine plan, can also go through its own completion, the realization of its destiny. Now, if we're not able to reinstate Algol in the original divine plan, in its light, then destiny here becomes a fatality, and the final judgment is delivered, and the star will be destroyed. It's important to understand that a planet, a star, or even a whole galaxy can only step into a higher plane of existence on its own evolutionary spiral of life if it collects more light than shadow scenes in its sphere. And that's why the fate of Algol is so important as well. Because if Algol can be redeemed, then actually this black anchor can be pulled up that would otherwise keep the boat of life in this galaxy on a lower level of consciousness. So the way that we can ascend collectively into a higher plane of existence and progress towards a higher level of consciousness together is to use our understanding to be in our own lives a channel of rebirth for Algol. As I said, the Holy Spirit holds the divine plan for any stellar world or planet in the core of that body. And in the core of Earth, our Gaia, the divine plan asks us to be the planet of redemption, the planet where all the karmic cycles of the Milky Way Galaxy are brought into redemption, into completeness, into balance. We're asked to harmonize and balance the 13 stellar soul families that we all contain inside of us, as well as the complementarity of the masculine and feminine faces of creation. So we can understand that it's not only the stars as our soul particles that send us information to guide us, but we, in our physical forms, can send back information, thoughts, experiences, decisions that will reach the stars as sentient parts of us ourselves and will help us evolve as light beings. We are evolving not only on the earth, we are evolving in the galaxy. We are evolving in the divine mind. We are evolving within creation. We are part of a very intelligent, grand organism. It is time for us to know and reclaim the span of our beings. The book of life is calling us into another chapter, another creation cycle.